Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for always being by my side, for your love and support throughout this emotional and turbulent journey of the single mother Ly Hoai Ca and the upright police officer Hung. Every view, every comment, and every share from you is a tremendous source of motivation for me to continue bringing even more meaningful and heartfelt episodes. Today, I'm bringing you a very special and intense new episode. The love story between Hoai Ca and Hung has already weathered countless storms, but in this episode, a serious incident once again puts them to the test, a challenge that threatens not only their relationship but also their very lives. In this episode, something truly unexpected happens to Ly Hoai Ca. Someone she would never have suspected, a face that once seemed familiar, heartlessly betrays her. With no warning and no signs, Hoai Ca suddenly finds herself in grave danger, her life hanging by a thread. It's a chilling moment between life and death that will leave viewers holding their breath. What exactly happened? Who is behind this cruel scheme? And why would anyone target such a kind and gentle woman like Hoai Ca? In this life-threatening moment, what will Officer Hung do? Will he make it in time to save the woman he loves with all his heart? Is their love, already scarred by pain and loss, strong enough to survive yet another storm? This episode marks a major turning point, revealing unexpected secrets and mysterious connections from Hoai Ca's past. As hidden truths begin to surface, you'll witness more clearly the strength, courage, and deep wounds in the heart of this single mother. Don't take your eyes off the screen for even a second. Every scene, every line of dialogue carries a vital piece of the story. Step with me into the emotional world of these characters, where love, betrayal, trust, and sacrifice collide with every heartbeat. If you enjoy this series, don't forget to hit like, share it with fellow romance drama lovers, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any upcoming episodes. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. Who do you think is behind this incident? What will Hung do to protect the woman he loves? And after this storm, can their love bloom once again? Stay tuned and watch now. Hung's mother, the woman who had devoted her entire life to raising, protecting, and placing all her hopes in her only son, had been silent for a long time. For months, she had withdrawn from family conversations, living quietly on the sidelines. Then, one day, without warning, she announced that she would be going on a long vacation. The news, at first, surprised no one. People assumed she needed time away, a break from all the inner turmoil, a chance to heal from the prolonged tension between her and Hung. Even Hung believed it. He nodded in agreement, even feeling a sense of relief, thinking that perhaps his mother was finally giving him space, finally stepping back to let him live his own life. But no one knew that behind the word vacation was a door leading to something far darker, a plan carefully fueled by resentment, heartbreak, and wounded pride. She wasn't leaving to rest. She was leaving to execute what she believed was the only way left to save her son from a path she considered wrong. A plan calculated down to chilling detail. Every stop along her journey was a piece in a game she had already set in motion, a game with one central player, the very son she had once loved more than life itself. It all began with something that seemed simple: she couldn't accept Ly Hoai Ca. Not her background. Not her status as a single mother. Not her plain, modest appearance. But beneath that rejection was something deeper, a fear so profound it broke her. She feared losing her son. She feared that the boy she had raised, loved, and sacrificed her entire youth for, was now turning his back on her, all because of a woman who was never part of her plans. The truth was, she didn't just despise Hoai Ca, she feared her. Feared that this woman might replace her in Hung's heart. Feared that decades of sacrifice could be overwritten by just a few months of reckless love. And when fear and pride suffocate the heart, reason begins to crack. She no longer believed Hung could make the right choice. She started to believe that Hoai Ca had bewitched him, using some form of manipulation or dark charm to lure him away from his family, to make him blind, disloyal, ready to abandon everything just to protect a stranger. That feeling, the bitterness, the suspicion, the hatred, slowly corroded every last bit of logic inside her. And so, she didn't choose kind advice. She didn't choose silence and hope time would prove her wrong. She chose the most brutal option, eliminate Hoai Ca from her son's life. Quietly, with no signs, she reached back into her past, into old connections tied to the underworld. People who operated outside the law, who worked for money and asked no questions. After days of gathering information, she made contact with a group of notorious enforcers, men known for cleaning up problems for the wealthy and ruthless. In a small, hidden cafe deep within a suburban alley, she appeared, wearing a long coat, a wide-brimmed hat, and a heavy handbag. She placed a thick envelope on the table and spoke only a few chilling words. She needs to disappear. As far from Hung as possible. I never want my son to see that woman again. If force is necessary. I trust you know what to do. There was no fear in her voice. No hesitation. She pulled out a photo of Hoai Ca, a distant, blurry shot taken in secret but clear enough to identify. In her eyes wasn't the pain of a mother concerned for her son, but the cold resolve of someone determined to do whatever it took to achieve her goal. And the most painful part? She truly believed she was doing the right thing. She believed she was saving her son, saving him from a mistaken future, from an unworthy love. That belief was so strong she was willing to pay the price with her conscience, her morals, even her maternal bond. A few days later, the group began to move. They followed Hoai Ca's every step like hunters tracking prey. They knew where she went after work. Which shortcuts she took to get home. Where she liked to pause and call Hung. She had no idea she was being watched, every step, every breath. Still the same gentle eyes. Still the soft smile whenever she spoke of the man she loved. But she was walking toward a darkness she couldn't see coming. The men hired by Hung's mother were not ordinary thugs. They were outlaws, men without conscience or morality, willing to harm anyone for the right price. And when she promised them a large sum, enough for them to lay low for a while, they abandoned the last trace of humanity in their actions. To them, Hoai Ca was just a name. Just a target to eliminate. Nothing more. Nothing less. The fateful day arrived on what seemed like a peaceful afternoon. Hoai Ca, after a morning of cleaning, organizing, and helping sell fruit at a familiar market, her regular side job to support her child, was walking home. Her steps were slow, relaxed under the fading sunlight. A soft breeze brushed past her hair as she thought fondly of the date she had planned with Hung that evening. She had no idea that just a few hundred meters from her home, 4 large men were waiting, concealed behind a black car parked in a dim alley. There were no loud shouts. No chaos. Just exchanged glances, then action. As Hoai Ca passed by, one of them swiftly approached from behind and covered her mouth with a cloth soaked in anesthetic. Everything happened too fast. She didn't have time to struggle, didn't have time to scream. Her vision blurred, and darkness swallowed her whole. Her body went limp. They dragged her into the car and sped away like nothing had happened. No one saw. No one heard the faint, muffled cry trapped in her throat. But they didn't stop at kidnapping. With the money promised, they wanted to finish the job, to please their client down to the last detail. They took Hoai Ca, now completely unconscious, deep into a remote forest, far from the city. The car stopped halfway up a mountain, where there was no phone signal, no signs of life, only the chilling wind howling through thick trees. One by one, they pulled her from the car. One man rummaged through her pockets, taking everything of value, the necklace her mother left behind, the simple earrings she wore every day, the money from selling fruit that she hadn't even had time to hide. Another snatched her phone and smashed it on the ground. They wanted to make sure she had nothing left, no means of contact, no valuables, no trace of her identity. And then came the most horrifying moment, something no one could imagine human beings were capable of. One of them slung Hoai Ca's unconscious body over his shoulder and began climbing a steep dirt path that led to the rocky summit. He said nothing. Just looked back and nodded to his accomplices. There was no hesitation. No remorse. He let go. Her small, limp body tumbled down the mountain slope. She rolled through dry bushes, slammed into jagged rocks, her body twisting and turning like a falling leaf with no control. A harsh crack echoed as her head struck a large boulder. But the pain didn't stop there. She kept falling, lower, farther, until her body landed in a shallow stream at the foot of the mountain, where icy water whispered against scattered stones. Hoai Ca lay still. Unmoving. Her hair was tangled and matted with dirt and dried blood. Her face pale and lifeless. Her forehead swollen with a deep, bleeding gash. No one saw. No one knew. And no one came. She lay there, alone, silent, like a fragile soul abandoned in the vastness of this world. Even nature itself seemed to hold its breath before the cruelty of mankind. From kindergarten and brought him home. That day, Hoai Ca had texted, saying she would stop by the market to grab some fruit and prepare dinner for the two of them. But when Hung got home, the sun was already sinking toward the west, and the little house was eerily quiet. No footsteps from Hoai Ca. No scent from the kitchen. No familiar voice calling, "You're back?" Instead, there was only a strange, hollow silence, colder than usual. A sense of unease crept into him. At first, Hung thought maybe she got busy or dropped by to see someone and forgot to say. But the longer he stared at the clock, the more anxious he became. Hoai Ca had never gone anywhere without letting someone know. She was careful, always thinking of others, especially with Tony now at home. Hung knew this, she would never leave her son waiting without a message or call. He tried calling her. Once, no answer. Twice, it rang for a long time, then stopped. The third time, the phone was turned off. The worry inside him turned into panic. Dark thoughts began to creep in. Had she fainted? Been in an accident? Or something far worse? Unable to sit still, he changed clothes, left Tony with a trusted neighbor, and sped off toward the market she usually visited. But before he could arrive, someone else was already looking for Hoai Ca. Diep, in recent days, had been quietly trying to rekindle the past. He knew she had moved on with Hung, but his lingering feelings refused to fade. He wasn't coming to intrude or disrupt her life, he just wanted to see her. Even from afar. Just once. But just as he neared her house, something caught his eye. He froze. A faded conical hat, the same one Hoai Ca always wore to the market, was lying by the roadside. Beside it, her familiar bamboo basket lay overturned, covered in dust and dirt. Diep stood there, stunned. His heart pounded. An overwhelming dread surged within him, the kind of instinct only a man still in love could feel. Without hesitation, he picked up the hat and basket and ran straight to Hoai Ca's house. There, he unexpectedly found Hung, standing motionless at the door, face tight with tension. Two men, once rivals in love, now stood side by side, bound by the same fear. No words were spoken, but their eyes said it all: something's wrong. Hung clenched his phone, his eyes red, trying to stay composed. He had already called everywhere: friends, neighbors, the market, even the nearby clinic, but no one had seen her. Du, after recounting what he had found, handed Hung the items, confirmation that this wasn't just a casual absence. This was a disappearance, without farewell, without a trace, in broad daylight. And the worst part was, they couldn't act. By law, an adult who goes missing for less than 24 hours, without signs of danger or concrete evidence, cannot be reported for investigation. Hung knew this better than anyone. He was a police officer. And that made his helplessness even more excruciating. He knew the rules. And right now, those very rules were binding his hands, when all he wanted to do was act. Both men sat silently on the front steps as night fell. No words. Only the chirping of crickets, the whisper of wind, and a silence thick with dread. Du occasionally glanced toward the alley, hoping for a miracle, that Hoai Ca would appear, fruit basket in hand, smiling and saying, "Sorry, I just stopped by Aunt Tu's place." But Hung remained still, his brow furrowed, eyes distant. Inside him was a storm, of fear, of rage, of a gut feeling screaming, someone has touched the woman he loves. And he swore, if that feeling proved true, he would not let it go unanswered. As the night grew deeper, the air around Hoai Ca's small house became more and more suffocating. No one said it aloud, but in the hearts of both Hung and Du, a vague, creeping fear had started to take shape, and with every minute of silence that passed, it was like another cut into the fragile hope that everything is still okay. Inside the house, little Tony sat on the floor, clutching his small teddy bear, his eyes red from crying. He didn't understand what was happening. He only knew that his mother hadn't come home, and the longer he waited, the tighter his chest ached. Every passing car outside, every distant footstep from the alley, made him jump up and run to the door, hoping to see that familiar figure of his mother. But each time, disappointment sank deeper into his young face. Tony began to cry louder, his voice choking with every sob. "Mommy, where are you? Mommy, I miss you." Hung heard it, and it tore at his heart like a blade. He held the boy in his arms, trying to comfort him through tears of his own. Never in his life had he felt this helpless. The man who had always been composed through the toughest cases, always sharp in every emergency, now couldn't even find the one woman who meant the most to him. He couldn't bring himself to look into Tony's tear-filled eyes. And he didn't dare imagine the worst. After a while, still holding Tony close, Hung made a decision. He took the boy to the home of his foster mother, an elderly woman who had helped Hoai Ca many times before, especially in caring for Tony when she was busy. As her wrinkled hands gently received the child, Hung said just one thing. "Please watch Tony for me. It's urgent." She didn't ask questions. She simply nodded, her eyes full of understanding, and a flicker of quiet worry. Immediately after, Hung and Du got into the car and began their desperate search for Hoai Ca. They went to the small garden where she often picked vegetables, a few pumpkin tips, some cabbage, to sell at the market. She once said, "I feel peaceful here, like my mother's presence is with me." But the garden was empty, overgrown with weeds. Only banana leaves swayed gently in the wind. No one was there. No sign of her. Next, they visited the markets she used to frequent, from the crowded morning stalls to the tiny roadside evening vendors, places where she had once set up her humble fruit stand. Everyone there had admired her, the modest woman who always greeted others with a gentle smile. Hung and Du asked the neighbors, the old ladies selling greens, even the young workers hauling produce. But the answers were always the same. "Didn't see her today." Strange, she comes every day. But not today. With every dead end, Hung's anxiety grew heavier. And Du, who had only meant to visit for the sake of old memories, could no longer hide his alarm. Together, they ran, searched, called her name in familiar alleyways, on streets filled with memories. But the only reply was the still wind, the concerned glances from strangers, and the crushing emptiness pressing in from all sides. In the car, silence wrapped around them like a shroud. Du clutched the conical hat he had found, now torn on one side and stained with dried mud. Hung held his phone, checking it every few minutes, redialing Hoai Ca's number again and again, still off. Still no signal. He had never felt this lost. No leads. No clues. No trace. It was as if she had vanished from existence. Neither man dared say it aloud. But in both of their minds, dark suspicions began to form. Perhaps this wasn't just a casual absence. Not just a moment alone to clear her mind. Perhaps this was something deliberate. Darker. More sinister. And deep inside, Hung finally began to ask himself. Could someone have intentionally taken Hoai Ca out of his life? More than 24 hours had passed since Hoai Ca disappeared, and with each silent minute, the last fragile hope slowly faded into an oppressive stillness. Hung and Du, after an entire day of relentless searching, had walked every familiar road, questioned everyone they thought might know even a sliver of information. From neighbors near her home to vendors at the wholesale market, from her favorite garden to the open fields behind the village, all remained silent, as if the earth itself had swallowed a nameless soul. At every stop, they were met with the same things. Sympathetic sighs. Shaken heads. And painful questions like salt to an open wound. She's always so careful, what happened today? Could something really have gone wrong? The sky that day was gray and heavy, as if mirroring the weight of the confusion and dread in both men's hearts. Du, the man who had once loved Hoai Ca in silence throughout his youth, could no longer hide the fear in his eyes. And Hung, her present love, her steady anchor and protector, stood motionless, as if turned to stone. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He didn't panic. But that silence was heavier than any cry. Because deep down, a part of him already sensed the truth, one he didn't dare to name. And then, they had no choice but to face it. Hoai Ca was officially missing. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment escape. It wasn't the sulking withdrawal of a tired woman. This was something serious, and very likely criminal. At dawn the next day, with the morning air still crisp, Hung and Du reported to the local police station, the very place where Hung had once worked countless investigations. But today, he didn't come as an officer. He came as a loved one. A man searching for the woman he loved with all his heart and soul. Upon hearing the news, the shift commander, a veteran officer who had worked alongside Hung on many past cases, immediately ordered a criminal investigation to be opened. A special task force was assembled at once, including homicide detectives, forensic technicians, and a high-tech surveillance unit. Unlike other cases where conflict of interest might require an officer to step back, Hung was not removed from the team. Not this time. Not because of privilege, but because no one knew Hoai Ca better than he did. No one was more determined. And no one had more at stake. During the initial questioning, Du, still trembling from a sleepless night, shared a critical detail. On the afternoon of Hoai Ca's disappearance, he had seen a white car parked outside her house. He had never seen that car before. Its timing was too perfect, arriving just about half an hour before he found her hat and basket abandoned on the roadside. He hadn't seen the license plate or the people inside, but it was enough, a thread to pull on. The team quickly split into multiple directions. One group reviewed all nearby surveillance cameras between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. Another followed traffic cam footage on major nearby roads to track the suspicious white car. Other teams fanned out to the places she was known to frequent: the market, friends' homes, riversides, and open fields. Hung was assigned to the field unit. Even with a heart weighed down like stone, he donned his uniform and moved forward, step by step, side by side with his colleagues, inspecting every patch of suspect ground. He would not allow himself to collapse. He would not stop. He knew too well. If she was still alive, every minute counted. If something had already happened, he had to race against the truth to catch the one responsible. Just a few hours later, a call from one of the scouting teams made everyone freeze. At an empty lot by the riverside, about 2 kilometers from Hoai Ca's home, signs of a potential crime scene had been found. Hung rushed to the location. It was an overgrown clearing, deep in the brush, rarely visited. Even as he stepped out of the car, he could feel it: the air, the windless stillness, the eerie silence, like nature itself held its breath in anticipation of what was about to be revealed. With the team, he waded through the thick grass, and then his eyes landed on it, a blotch of dried blood at the base of a small tree. His heart stopped. Not far away was a broken wooden stick, smeared with blood. A few long strands of hair tangled in the dirt. Tire marks etched deep into the soft earth, leading from the main road, as if a vehicle had stopped abruptly. And finally, at the slope near the river's edge, a long slide mark, likely where a body had been dragged or thrown. Hung didn't need a forensics report. He knew. Something had happened here. And the victim was Hoai Ca. He dropped to his knees beside the bloodstain, fists clenched tight. He had stood at hundreds of crime scenes. He had seen brutal murders. But today, seeing her blood, shattered him into 1,000 pieces. He wanted to scream. To rage. To tear the world apart. But all of it burned silently in his eyes, the eyes of a man with nothing left to lose. A fellow officer stepped beside him, placed a firm hand on his shoulder, and said in a rough but resolute voice, "We'll give it everything we've got. If she's alive, we'll bring her back. If something's happened, we will not let the bastard go free." Hung nodded and slowly rose to his feet. His palm bled from clenching too hard, but his voice didn't shake. His eyes didn't waver. He was no longer just the man who had lost the love of his life. He was a soldier. And he would fight. For the truth. For justice. And for Hoai Ca. In a place completely cut off from the noisy world beyond the mountain, where only the quiet murmur of a stream flowed between silent trees, Hoai Ca lay unconscious on the cold earth. Her body limp. Her face pale and bruised. Her long hair was scattered with dirt and streaks of dried blood, draped across her cheek. Around her temple, a deep gash had dried into a dark, crusted patch that stained her hair. One of her legs was swollen and badly bruised, with signs of internal bleeding. Her left arm was scraped and motionless. She didn't know how long she had been lying there, hours, a day, or an entire night. No one knew. No one called her name. If fate had cruelly pushed her from the mountainside, then it was a flicker of quiet compassion in this desolate place that gave her a fragile thread of hope. That morning, deep in the forest, a thin, barefoot fisherman was crouched near a slippery stream, picking snails between moss-covered rocks. He lived with his older sister in a weathered shack tucked away in the woods, no electricity, no motorbike, no phone signal. Their connection to the outside world came only through a crackling old radio and occasional market trips hours away. While bent over the water, he suddenly heard something, a faint sound. A labored breath. A soft moan. He looked up, searching. On the other side of the stream, beneath a tree's shade, he saw a crumpled figure, motionless, clothed in torn garments, bloodied and bruised. His heart raced. Without hesitation, he crossed the stream, the current cold against his legs. As he drew near, he saw it was a young woman. She was still alive, barely. Her pulse was faint, her body cold as ice. There was no time to call for help. No vehicles. No options. Only his back. He lifted her onto his shoulders and began the long trek home, nearly an hour of walking through rough, root-strewn trails. Though she was feather-light on his back, each step felt heavy, like he was carrying a fading soul clinging to life. Days had passed since Hoai Ca was brought to the small, dilapidated cabin deep in the forest, but she still hadn't regained consciousness. Despite being cared for with all the simplest remedies, ginger water, herbal poultices, warm cloths, thin porridge, her face remained pale, her breathing grew weaker, and her body lay lifeless. Each passing day, they watched her unmoving form, and it broke their hearts a little more. The fisherman would leave at dawn to cast his nets in the stream, gathering wild herbs and roots on the way back, anything that might ease her injuries. He spoke little, but did everything he could with quiet devotion. His sister, a weathered, frail woman, her hair already streaked with gray from years of hardship, stayed behind to care for Hoai Ca day and night. She changed the water, wiped her body, rubbed herbal oil on her limbs, and every night whispered beside her bed. "Hold on, dear, please don't give up." But one morning, as she was gently wiping Hoai Ca's forehead, she noticed a thin stream of blood trickling from her nose. Terrified, she shouted for her brother. He dropped the basket of snails and ran back through the woods. And when he saw the blood, he knew they could no longer keep her here. This had gone far beyond the reach of herbs and prayers. She needed a doctor. She needed real help. That afternoon, he wrapped himself in an old jacket, grabbed a cloth bag, and walked more than 2 hours through the forest to the nearest town. He had no vehicle, no map, no knowledge of where to find a hospital, only a desperate hope. He went from shop to shop, person to person. "Is there a doctor here? Can someone help a young woman lying unconscious in the forest?" He was turned away again and again. Some were afraid of the distance, others demanded money he didn't have. Finally, an elderly retired doctor, moved by the tired, sincere look in the fisherman's eyes, stood up and said simply, "I'll go." By the time they returned, it was late. Under the flickering glow of an oil lamp, the doctor opened his medical bag and examined Hoai Ca with only basic instruments. The fisherman and his sister watched in silence, holding their breath, not daring to ask a thing. After nearly an hour, the doctor sat down and let out a heavy sigh. "This young woman has suffered a serious head injury," he said. "There may be internal bleeding, swelling in the brain. Her condition is critical. Without hospital treatment soon, she may suffer memory loss, paralysis, or even death." The fisherman went still. He didn't speak, just looked at his sister. She bit her lip, wringing the edge of her shirt, her eyes brimming with tears. "We're very poor," she whispered. "No money for transport, let alone hospital bills. If we take her to town, we won't be able to pay for anything." The doctor's expression dimmed. Quietly, he pulled out a few small packets of medicine, anti-inflammatory pills, and a bag of 4 fluid. He placed them on the table. "This is all I can leave you. It might buy some time, but it won't solve the problem. This isn't something you can gamble with. Please, do everything you can to get her to a hospital as soon as possible." After the doctor left, the cabin sank into silence. Neither sibling touched dinner. They sat beside Hoai Ca, watching her unmoving face, her lips dry, her forehead bruised. She wasn't family. They didn't know who she was. But from the moment she appeared on their doorstep, they had treated her like their own. That very night, the woman quietly opened an old rice jar and took out a handful of crumpled bills, money saved over many years, for illness, or to fix the leaking roof. The fisherman took off his late mother's old silver earrings, the last keepsake, and planned to sell them at the market for gauze and medicine. They didn't care if Hoai Ca ever woke up, if she'd remember them or not. They only knew one thing. As long as she was breathing, she had to be saved. And so, each day that passed in the tiny forest cabin was another day of quiet devotion. No sirens. No sterile hospital beds. No modern machines. Just one unconscious woman, and two poor, gentle souls doing everything in their power to keep her alive. As for Hoai Ca, she still hadn't opened her eyes. But deep in the mist of her dreams, it was as if some invisible, fragile red thread was still tethering her to the world beyond. On the other side of the city, seemingly detached from the chaos brewing deep in the remote mountains, hung's mother, the woman who once believed she controlled every aspect of her son's life, was quietly unraveling in panic. Ever since Hoai Ca went missing and the police officially launched their investigation, she had felt as though she were sitting atop a bed of hot coals. At first, she thought everything would be handled cleanly. As long as that girl disappeared, it didn't matter where she went, whether she lived or died, as long as she never appeared beside Hung again. She believed time would help Hung forget. That eventually, her son would return to the path she had planned for him. But nothing went as expected. The moment she realized Hung wasn't just in pain, but was personally leading the investigation, a very real fear gripped her. She knew her son. Once Hung committed to uncovering the truth, nothing could stop him, not even blood ties. Rumors had started to surface, that blood had been found, a potential weapon, and other suspicious traces near the riverside. She couldn't sleep. Each night dragged on endlessly, haunted not by guilt, but by fear. She knew what she had to do. On a night with light rain, she slipped out of the house, masked and hooded, and took a cab to an abandoned construction site on the outskirts of the city, the same place she had once met the men she hired. They were not ordinary men, they were mercenaries, ruthless and cold, doing whatever was asked for the right price. She stepped into the dark, damp room. A flashlight beam flickered against cracked walls. 4 men were waiting. The leader, tattooed back, raspy voice, squinted at her. "You came, because the girl's not dead, huh?" She didn't respond directly. From her bag, she pulled out a thick envelope, her hands trembling. Sliding it across the table, she spoke, slowly but with sharpness. "This is extra. But you will keep your mouth shut. I don't want anyone, especially the police, knowing I had anything to do with this. There won't be a third time." The man picked up the envelope, flipped through it, then gave a crooked smirk. "You think this is enough to buy our silence forever? This thing's blown up. The cops are crawling everywhere. And I hear your son is leading the case himself." She went pale. Her voice cracked. "How much more do you want? Just name it. I'll pay. But you must erase all trails. No witnesses. No appearances. If this gets out, it's not just me, you won't be safe either." The men exchanged glances. Another one spoke. "We already went too far. Pushed the girl off the mountain. If she's still alive, that's not our fault. But if you want us to go back, to finish the job, it'll cost more. A lot more." She didn't argue. Without a word, she pulled another bundle of cash from a hidden pouch, both hands shaking, her lips bitten until they bled. She had never been the kind of woman easily manipulated. But now, she was trapped by her own game. There were no choices left. Reputation? Money? Or a secret that, if exposed, could destroy her son's entire future? The gang took the money without another word and vanished into the shadows. Not a single goodbye. She remained there alone on the damp ground, heart pounding, tormented by fear, yet still clinging to the belief that if she could just keep this secret buried, if Hung never found out, then everything would go back to how it used to be. But what she didn't know was that nothing was under her control anymore. While Hoai Ca remained unconscious in the depths of a remote forest, her head injury swelling by the day, her body weakening, her breath barely clinging to life, somewhere else, Hung, the man who had vowed to protect her with everything he had, continued searching, day after day, in utter despair. He left no clue unchecked, no path unexplored. Even though he didn't know where she was, or whether she was alive or not, the belief that she was still breathing had never once left his heart. And Tony, the little boy too young to understand, only knew one thing. His mother wasn't home anymore. Every night, he startled awake from dreams, crying for her. And every time Hung held him close, listening to his soft sobs, "Mommy, has she come back yet?" It felt like his heart broke all over again. A man searching in vain. A woman quietly fighting for her life. A child calling out to his mother in the dark. Will time be enough to save a life so fragile? Can love overcome the darkness, the guilt, the cruel conspiracy that tore them apart? And will Hoai Ca ever get the chance to hear Hung call her name one more time? Hung and Hoai Ca, two souls who seemed destined to lose each other forever. Can they survive the storm this time, and find their way back to one another? Stay tuned for the next episode, and don't forget to follow so you won't miss a single moment.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến cho mọi người câu chuyện tình yêu của mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca và cảnh sát Hùng nha mọi người. Như mọi người cũng biết thì cảnh sát Hùng và mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca thì mọi người cũng có thể hiểu là tình yêu của họ rất là to lớn. Tuy nhiên đã gặp phải sự phản đối của mẹ Hùng rất là gay gắt từ trước đến giờ. Và trong thời gian qua thì mẹ Hùng với cái lý do là đi du lịch dài ngày, nhưng thực ra là bà đang lên một âm mưu rất là ác độc để chia rẽ. Và bà đã làm một chuyện mà ngay cả mình cũng không thể ngờ là một người mẹ có thể làm chuyện đó đó mọi người. Thậm chí bà có thể dùng đến hạ sách là lấy đi tính mạng của Hoài Ca để nhằm chia rẽ Hùng. Với một người mẹ độc đoán như thế thì liệu Hùng với Hoài Ca có thể vượt qua khó khăn này, và liệu sau qua khó khăn này thì cái con đường mà quay trở lại và tiếp tục tình yêu nó sẽ như thế nào? Thì các tình tiết đó còn rất dài ở các tập sau. Mình hy vọng là mọi người sẽ theo dõi kênh để không bỏ lỡ bất kỳ video nào mọi người nhé.